So over the last couple of days, really, it's been pretty crazy, as you can imagine, with the health scare and sort of the pandemic going on in the country. But my impetus towards building the new media company hasn't slackened. In fact, it's gotten more intense. Last week, I put out a video listing all the other aspects that I've been learning about the progressive web apps, all the server stuff. That was an insane learning curve. But I've obviously not thought about cartoons since I was young, and now I'm suddenly being forced to jump into that world for the first time. So I'm like trying to understand, how do you make cartoons? What does it take? I've been on a massive learning curve of like, what do you need to make a cartoon? How do you do that? What are the mechanics? What are the financials especially? So yeah, I'm gonna run through quickly some of the platforms that I've been going through, just to show you a sense of my diving off the deep end. So there's these apps that are, apps by apps I mean like whole suites of software, such as like TV Paint, Toon Boom, that are very famous and like widely used in the animation industry. With TV Paint especially, it's basically a raster paint program, which is designed for animation. So like they have things like you can see like onion skinning prior and subsequent frames, so that you can do in-betweening. You can do timing charts. I've been learning way too much about animation. So TV Paint is great, but it's also, like I said, raster based, which is to say it's all pixel based. So you really have no flexibility. It's really just like a pen and pencil, except on a computer screen. Toon Boom is a little bit better. There's some vector involved, but it's still basically kind of like an old school. And by old school and by traditional, I mean in a bad sense, in a sense of it doesn't represent the best of what's available, which I'll cover in a second. So it's more like TV Paint, but maybe a little bit stronger, a little bit more vector oriented, but not really great in the sense of what I'm going to show you next. There's a program called Krita, which is free. So TV Paint is like thousands of dollars. Toon Boom is thousands of dollars. Krita is basically free, and it's pretty incredible. So here's some scenes of animation that are really impressive that have been done in Krita. It really looks pretty spectacular. It looks just like a cartoon you'd see on TV or whatever, like in high quality. And it's much more vector based, as you can tell, than like TV Paint would be. So it's moving on with the times. I love that scene. This is really well done. The animation, like the monster, the kinetic energy. I like the proportions. I like the aesthetic. It's a lot better if all cartoons were made like this. And I like it. I like Krita. It's still not as great as what I'm going to show you last. What I basically settled on as like the solution for what I think we'll be using in 2-3 years or in 5 years when we have our own animation department. The next one is Clip Studio Paint. I only put it here just to sort of give a sense of what's out there, just the breadth of the available. There's maybe, I don't know, 8 to 10 pieces of software in the animation industry. So Clip Studio is one of that, is in that list of like 10. I like it a lot less than I do Krita, just because it's not free, but like it's very much intended as an animator's design hub. It's got a lot of things that you'd want. It's got onion skinning, it's got like timeline management and pacing. It's very heavily vector friendly, which is good. Now, one of the downsides with vector painting is that it begins to look fake. It looks too clean, which is one of the attractions of like old school animation, is that the eye doesn't like things to be too perfect. Like if it's too straight, if the line is too straight, it's not going to be appealing anymore. Something about a little bit of imperfection makes the eye happy. I've learned that a lot of anime is also made with Clip Studio. So Toon Boom and Clip Studio are the mainstays of anime Animate in Japan. The absolute best solution that I've discovered is Blender. Blender is basically an open sourced, completely free software package that is trying to replace and completely overtake and make obsolete every other software package in every other graphics, like in every graphics branch of the world. So like with like 3D modeling, that was their beginning. They've been working hard to make obsolete platforms like Maya and 3D Max and like ZBrush. I don't know if they've completely won that battle, but they're being free and being, 80 or 90% of those packages, which cost thousands of dollars, is unbelievable. So they've won, by that standard, they've won the race of being competitive enough to be a viable option and being completely free and being open source. So the last feature they've added a year and a half ago, they've added a thing called Grease Pencil as one of their tools. So this is a 3D modeling software that has now tried to become an animation studio. They've added a feature to draw completely 2D animations with everything you would expect from Clip Studio, from Krita, from Toon Boom, from TV Paint, from Photoshop, from After Effects, from Illustrator, from Flash. They've thrown it all together and made it free and made it open source. And you can do it within a 3D space. In other words, you're still drawing on a 2D surface, but that 2D surface itself becomes a 3D object that you can go around and you can manipulate. So if you have like multiple 2D objects, you can stack them and you can have a scene of like trees and then the sky behind it, some characters in the foreground. Then you can move the camera and it looks like the trees are moving faster than the sky behind it. So there's a parallax effect. There's a 3D reality that comes into the picture when you have a full 3D program that is powering your project. And you can do things in Blender that are basically impossible in like full-featured industry standard animation packages that cost thousands of dollars. And that was all added only a year and a half ago. I've been seeing things that make me believe that you'll see a lot more of it in the next year or two. And they've made this really tremendous demo reel animation to sort of show exactly how much you can do with Blender, how it's basically in every way fully featured animation studio. And what I mentioned about needing to be textured and the danger of being too vector friendly. It's a beautiful cartoon if you watch the cartoon that they've put together, but you can see that it's too clean in the lines and the colors. It's too flat, it's too vectorish. It feels very vectorish. So I've been trying to understand how to avoid that particular look because it doesn't look very attractive. Like you can put the Blender animation side by side with Disney's first feature film, Snow White, and the Snow White, with all of its imperfections, will still stand out. That's because it doesn't have the vector feel to it. So I've been researching a lot. What does it take to get away from that vector feel? And basically it has to do with one of the problems with the vector feel is that the outlines are too thick, right? They're very black and very thick. So like a character would have a very thick black outline. What Disney did was they had very thin outlines when they were doing their inking, and oftentimes the outlines themselves were colored to the shape they were circumscribing. So if you had like a shape of someone's face, whatever, it might have that tint. The outline would have that tint instead of having a black, like thick black tint, which is what this cartoon in Blender suffers from. So there's ways to get away from the vector feel. And the other thing that you can do in Blender is you can change your brush that you paint with. So it doesn't have to be like an ink pen, like with a solid, uniform, fake sort of flow of ink, as it were. It could be a pencil, which could have imperfections in the brush itself. So your line could be a straight line, and yet have like little subtle like texture to it, which could be in every way as good as a pencil drawing, but still be a vector and therefore receive all the advantages of a vector, namely that you can move and adjust it and change it and fix errors and move, like just moving vectors after the drawing is finished is something that Disney masters never imagined could be done, but now it's doable in Blender easily. So I think, and obviously I've never done a day's worth of animation in my life. All this is just preliminary research work, but sounds to me like modulating the brush stroke and color and making it almost invisible, and also modulating the actual brush texture to make it less uniform. Just on maybe 1,000 more things that I can't even imagine right now will help us get away from sort of too cartoony a feel, and it will become more of like a drawing, an old-fashioned drawing. So I'm very excited. My head's exploding from all this learning, but I'm very excited about what the potential for the future holds, and this is only the beginning. You'll see more of what I'm talking about very, very soon.